when we design experiences, we bring in social psychology. And social psychology of relationships tells us that in order to form a relationship with somebody, that person needs to feel three things. They need to feel that you understand them. They need to feel that you validate what's important in their world, and they need to feel that you care. Okay, so when we say think of a gift broadly, we say think of things that make people feel one of those three ways.
Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations. Today, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Jamie Shibley. She is the CEO of the Expressory, a strategic engagement agency that believes the key to accelerating business growth and profitability in the post-COVID era lies in your ability to maintain personal connections and build emotional loyalty in your relationships. Jamie is the best-selling author of Relationships First Strategic Engagement and is widely respected as a market leader. Her work has been featured on Entertainment Tonight and Forbes.com. Today, we're talking about corporate gifting done right. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Glad that you're here. I know we've been talking about this for quite a while. And for full disclosure, we've been working with your company for probably almost 5 years now.
Yes, it's getting there.
Yeah. So because my company, Axia, we use Jamie's company for gift giving and including giving gifts to our podcast guest. It'll be a little weird to have you send a gift to yourself, but I guess we'll do that. And but we're talking about corporate gifting done right, which I believe is a real struggle for a lot of companies and organizations. And I think we'll get into the details about that a little bit later. So Jamie, anything else you want to add to introduce yourself to our audience?
No, I think you got it. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So as I said earlier, we have a business relationship together, and we were connected through mutual contacts. Whereas, we were thinking, okay, the one thing we don't want falling between the cracks is recognizing our talented team and our employees, and two, recognizing our clients and those other individuals that we do business with in some way. And so we want to be very intentional, strategic, but also have the ability to where we've got a partner like you that helps us own this. We tried over the years to do it in-house, and we could use the excuse that we're a small business and we're busy or whatever. But at the end of the day, you really need someone who, I think, what is it they say in traction? You want somebody who wants it, who has the capacity to do it, and whatever the other qualifications are that I can't think of. I'm literally just hours back from vacation, so I'm still a little focused on personal stuff.
Lake life.
Yeah. Lake life, exactly. But to that end, I mean, at the end of the day, you want somebody who loves it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it. And we've tried with that, and we've had different people, both internally as W-2 employees, and even just like hiring, an independent contractor, like a stay-at-home mom that we knew that just had a gift for gift giving, and she loved doing it. But it's a lot more work than people realize, because not only do you have to source it and figure it out and message it right, but then you still have to package it and send it and track it and all this other, crazy stuff that you've built a business around, right, Jamie?
Yeah, systems, I think, right? Like to help you be consistent. And I think you, when you came to us, you had already just this fantastic idea of the experience you wanted. I mean, it was, we want to use a specific color tissue paper. We want this kind of branding or not branding. And you guys had it down. I think, again, it just comes back to that consistency of execution that becomes difficult for people to do. I think the other thing you were good at that you didn't mention, part of what you guys do is you nurture your prospects as well. So you recognize that it's not only the people that you already know and have some sort of relationship with, it's about nurturing the ones you want for the long term as well.
You make a good point. So I think that illustrates my example even more. Like, we know what we want. Having somebody who owns it and is responsible for it is even more beneficial, because you're remembering things that I've forgotten, just because, as the owner of the company, just like you own your company, I'm going 1,000 miles an hour, and casualties just happen along the way. And so, then I'll realize like 3 weeks later, oh, we didn't give a gift for Sally's birthday. And, and then I feel like a heel, because Sally knows that we do a good job of giving gifts. And so then Sally's wondering, well, are they mad at me? Whatever, but just things happen, and so you kind of forget, but I don't want to be forgetful. I want to be intentional. And that's why your system and service is very helpful. So let's talk about this for a minute. So there's typically at least two primary audiences, and that would be strategic themed gift giving for internal, meaning employees. That could also be maybe, depending on the company, shareholders and leadership team, investors. And then external audiences, which, just scratching the surface, would be clients and customers, and then maybe even more than that. And some of our audience is going to have, their initial reaction is going to be, well, gosh, we have thousands of employees and thousands of shareholders and maybe millions of customers. How could we possibly, manage something like that? But to your point, I think it's systems, but I'm going to lean into you as the expert.
Yeah. One group that we could add to that is like your vendor partners as well, because when your vendor partners feel valued and seen, they will work harder for you, right? You want those relationships to thrive as well. So I think when you're talking about like large groups, I think it's very common for people to get hung up on budget and, oh my gosh, that's overwhelming. What are we going to do? How do we manage this? But the one thing I want to invite people to think about is when we hear gift, we naturally go to that place of like a wrapped present and holidays and birthday, right? But in our world, gift is broader than that. If you look up the definition of a gift is to give something. And we say to give something with no expectation of return. But it doesn't mean it has to be present. Sometimes a gift is your smarts. Sometimes a gift is just something that's simply helpful to someone. So you don't have to spend, the budget does not matter. Maybe a company is launching something new, right? And they know that whatever they're launching, the employees would love it, to buy this thing eventually as well. So maybe they put all of that item in people's hands. But more importantly, it's about the message of why you're doing it. And the whole point is to make people feel seen and understood. When we design experiences, we bring in social psychology. And social psychology of relationships tells us that in order to form a relationship with somebody, that person needs to feel three things. They need to feel that you understand them. They need to feel that you validate what's important in their world, and they need to feel that you care. Okay, so when we say think of a gift broadly, we say think of things that make people feel one of those three ways. What do you know about these people's world? And how can you show them you care? Because at the end of the day, that is all that matters.
So, Jamie, what I'm hearing you say is the word feeling multiple times. And for someone like myself, who is very analytical and logical and systems and process driven, sometimes I can miss that in the experience. Sure. But as you know, from our interactions, I knew that was important for us in our company to be able to capture that. And, and as you know, sometimes I can be very particular or picky about the gifts that I want to give to people, because there's so much to consider. Yeah. And, if you want to have, in an ideal world, you could be like, I really know Jamie, I like her, or, and I've gotten to know her. So I know these are 3 to 5 things she really appreciates. But some people aren't as transparent or as open about their personal life, where you can really capture those things. So as you know, we have an inventory with you at your warehouse of, gifts that we frequently give. And sometimes those gifts just aren't appropriate for certain people based on,
Right.
their personality.
What
so
you may know.
yeah. And so, for example, as we found, I found that it's hard to give gifts of food and drink because people have dietary restrictions or allergies, or maybe they have loved ones that struggle with, alcohol. So sending alcohol would seem inappropriate unless that person, you've been around that person in a social settings to understand it. So, what are kind of some of your thoughts or guidelines or guardrails when it comes to, corporate gift giving and making sure that you're on the mark?
Yeah. So again, if we go back to kind of that feeling, right? Those three things people need to know.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to think about it when it's hard to do individually, right? At that level. Not everybody can get to that level. There are some companies where you may not have a very big recipient list, and you can think about what you know about each individual person and kind of customize it from there. But more often, what you do is you want to categorize or tier the different groups of people that you're giving to. And then step back and think about what you know about their world. If it's your vendors, is there a collective understanding of, wow, they're all really struggling right now. Let's think about the current environment, right? Tariffs. It's a struggle to right now for vendors trying to figure out how to navigate all of this. Is there something I could give them that acknowledges, hey, I know it's a crazy time, just want to say I see you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what could reflect that? It doesn't have to be expensive. It's just the fact that you're taking a moment and the recipient looks at it and goes, wow, thank you for saying that and understanding where I'm at.
Right.
Maybe it's your employees and you're moving through a season of a lot of hours, a lot of work, and the message is something like, man, we've had a lot going on. It's been a great quarter for us. We know you're working hard. Here is a gift card. Go take your family or friends out for some ice cream or whatever it may be, right? Like, again, doesn't have to be expensive, but you're showing an understanding of their world. They've put in all this time with you. They just want a little time for themselves. Things like that, relaxation. How can you show that someone has gone above and beyond? Or maybe you've all just gone through and achieved something remarkable together. Give them something that reflects that storyline because, hey, we all did this together and look at what we did. And here's this thing that is going to reflect something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that you said it doesn't have to be expensive. And that reminds me of a struggle I hear that I'm sure you can address, although it may still seem like a difficult question, which is, the common example is like holiday parties or, gifts that people receive for their employer. Sometimes people say, well, gosh, I just would have rather had the cash than this gift. Right. But sometimes the gift, like you said, is something small, like a gift card to go get ice cream. And let's say that's a $20, $25, $50 gift card.
Right.
I guess my question is ultimately this, Jamie, is how do you best avoid a scenario where someone is cynical and you give them a gift and they just think, well, that's it.
I know.
That's all you value me for. And, or you do a holiday party and they're like, gosh, you spent way too much money. I would have rather just had the money. And the example I think of is like my friend, and this is just a funny story. And to this day, I still think something went wrong, but he went to the holiday party. He was about to leave and he told his boss or leader or whatever that he was leaving. And they said, oh, hang around for 10, 15 more minutes. We're going to give out, your gift, it's a Christmas party. We're going to give out gifts. So, he was kind of like, I really need to get home, babysitter, whatever. So he stuck around and then they handed out in envelopes, just plain number 10 envelopes, Visa gift cards for everybody.
Okay.
And when he actually opened it and peeled back the gift card or whatever it was, it come to find out the gift card was a $10 Visa gift card. And to make things worse, when he went to the store to use it, it actually came back and said, declined or invalid or whatever. So it didn't even work. And so I asked him for like a year, like, did you ever say anything? Did you ever like whatever? And he said, no, I just said, forget it. I think he used a different word than forget.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I just thought that was hilarious. And just him telling me the story, you could tell how defeated he felt about, one, having to stick around to get a gift card that felt very meaningless. And for context, he makes six figures working at this company. So, to him, a $10 gift card felt very kind of insulting.
Sure.
Now the backstory is they gave gift card to the same gift card allegedly to every single employee in the company. And, there's probably hundreds of employees. So I think in the moment, it probably felt like a nice gesture when you look at the grand total of the amount, right, that the company spent.
Yeah. That's really interesting because I have a story, like a negative don't do story, that is very similar with that same value. Okay. So we had a client that was using us for a while, and she had an employee who went above and beyond while the owner was on vacation. Okay. And so she wanted to give the employee a thank you for covering everything, right? And so it was this message of, boy, thanks for, taking that on while I was away. And it was a $10 gift card.
Right.
And whatever the message said, I just remember that even the team here writing it was kind of taken aback. Like it didn't match the sentiment, right? Mm-hmm. Like something was off. And I think we've all been in that place where we've received something where it's felt like, yeah, you didn't mean that. Mm-hmm. So how do you correct for that? I genuinely go back to how you make someone feel. And I think in the case of your friend, because it was probably thousands of employees, and I don't know how reasonable it is to pull this off, but if that truly is the only budget you have, I think you have to go deeper on your message. Mm-hmm. You have to make that message as powerful as it can be about them and the fact that you know what they did. And how they showed up, and acknowledge the true human receiving it, not just general. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to belong. We are living in a world that is extremely tech heavy these days. The advancements coming left and right. And it is notably documented just how isolated we are all becoming. And so in today's day and age, if you can take a moment to truly see a person and call out their personal good and make them feel they belong, I think you accomplish it. Your true intentions, regardless of what you were able to give. Mm-hmm. We completed some market research this year, and it included business leaders in the professional services industry. And one of the questions we asked is, have you ever felt irritated with a gift? Kind of this same discussion. And there were no yeses, but in the comments, the only time people had like a negative sentiment, it was when something was branded by the company giving it and nothing else. Right. So there was no usefulness, and it reflected more about the giver than the recipient.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps. Our guidance when you're creating experiences is it's all about what story do you want to sell. And, we talked about the book that, or you touched on that in the intro. One of the things I do in the book is go through these 6 storylines that we use when we're designing gifts when possible. And if you can tap into things like, does it acknowledge a goal or a milestone, either a future goal or one they've already achieved? If the gift and the message talk about, yay, you did it, or can't wait until you do, that is a lasting gift. Mm-hmm. And people feel strongly and they connect you to that. if you touch on a transitional period, something in the person's world that they're working through, it can be transitional, like we think of COVID, moving in and out of COVID, that's a transitional time. So if your message reflects that we felt this, that connects people. So it's things like that that create the power in whatever it is you're giving to a person.
Yeah, I like that. And as you know, one of the things we like to do is core value giving. So, we're something related to our 5 core values. And when someone exemplifies that or has been recognized by others in that way, we want to, give them a gift of appreciation for, living and breathing our core values. So,
right.
Jamie, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about how our audience can get a free copy of your book. We're also going to talk about ethical considerations and just some additional best practices for corporate gift programs. So stay with us, and we'll be right back on the other side with more On Top of PR. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Enjoy 30 days free of Audible Premium Plus by going to ontopofpr.com/audible.
You're listening to On Top of PR with your host, Jason Mudd. Jason is a trusted advisor to some of America's most admired and fastest growing brands. He is the managing partner at Axia Public Relations, a PR agency that guides news, social, and web strategies for national companies. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations. And today I'm joined by Jamie, and we're talking about corporate gift giving. And that's how Jamie and I met, through a referral. And they've been our corporate gift giving agency for the last 5 years. So I'm honored to have her on our program and share some insights into what we do at Axia, as well as how she helps her clients. So we want to jump in, and at the end, we're going to tell our audience how they can get a free copy of your book, which I think they'll be excited to have. But let's talk just a little bit more about ethical considerations. I'm sure you have your own ideas. Top of mind for me is always thinking about pricing. Like, there's a price point where it probably becomes maybe unethical for you to gift to your clients, right? Especially if they work at a big company and, they don't want to sense that they're being influenced by gifting. And that kind of thing. And then secondly, I think is, as we talked about earlier, just being sensitive to, dietary, religious, or, value-based that you might offend in some way by sending a gift. So the last thing you want to do, and I talk about this all the time with my team, is we would be better off not sending a gift or not sending a note card to somebody if it has something that is a negative unintended consequence or ramification. So for example, if you send somebody a handwritten note and you accidentally misspell their name, you might have been better off not even sending the handwritten note, right?
Yeah.
Or just like if I'm writing a letter to Jamie and I accidentally call her Stephanie at some point in the note, probably would have been better just to not even do it at all. So I think that's, something that's kind of top of mind for me, is making sure, one, you're accurate, you're considerate in your messaging, and considerate in the gift itself, which we kind of explored some of that earlier. But what are some of your common thoughts or recommendations when it comes to ethics?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually work with a number of financial advisor companies, right? And they actually have legal limits for gifting, because again, you can't appear to buy someone's business.
Yeah.
I know in corporate world, that's a very big thing. It's very common. So how we generally work with that, if you're giving to companies where they may have regulations around what they can receive, maybe you don't know what that is, we usually guide our clients to just assume it's a low bar, because some of these companies have, you can't accept anything more than $25. So how we get around that, having worked in corporate, you can usually keep a gift if it's shareable and you just put it out in the break room and other people get to partake in that. You can keep something if it's educational, and again, could potentially be shared. So books, helpful material. So if you can structure whatever you're giving around that. So if you're thinking of giving like an appreciation gift, one. Is it goodies that they can share? But it could also be, hey, I know you're probably a person who likes continuous learning. Here's the latest top ranking business book, but again, it's in your language, right? And so now a person feels, or hey, we're moving into the winter season, and by us, it's in Wisconsin, it's usually cold and you don't like to go outside. So here's a good book to get you through winter season. So you can, now I'm kind of using a transitional period in there as well for the story. Yeah. Now you've mentioned the alcohol. That one comes up frequently. The unknown, or maybe the person, the giver, has preferences. They just don't like that. How we usually work around that is we find there are a number of mixers that can be used as non-alcoholic. That way, the recipient still can partake in that taste, and so if you send like a variety of mixed packs, or what do they usually call them now? I don't know, they're usually packages, or they don't call them marinades in drink. Forget what the drinks are called. Anyway, you mix these things in. That usually works. Allergies are a tough one because you can't. So the best thing you can do there is send an assortment of things. So if there is one thing that's an allergy, it can be given away.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Does that help?
Yeah, I like your tip of making it shareable. I think that's important. What we do, you mentioned earlier, we're very systemized. So on our onboarding form of a new client, we specifically ask them about restrictions. So do you have any dietary or other restrictions or preferences in the event that we, want to send a gift? And if we want to send a gift, or is there anything we need to know? As you were talking, I was just making some notes. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but at one point the IRS, said that if you give or receive a gift and it's less than, I don't know, I think it was 20, but it might have been $25. Then you don't have to report it as taxable income or whatever. And so to us, that was a good guideline. The problem I have with the IRS is, when they wrote that, whether it was $20 or $25, was that 30 years ago? Right. And then the same thing with whether or not you have to send somebody a 1099 form, each tax year, that number is $600. Well, it was $600 when I was a preteen, and if you're looking at me on video, you can tell I haven't been a preteen in a long time. So, to me, I get frustrated with those outdated numbers that they don't update. But, the other thing I think is, worth mentioning here is just, the other struggle is so many people work from home now. And so we had this dates like 15 years ago, but we were sending this contact a bunch of stuff at the office, like once a quarter, trying to engage somebody we wanted to do business with as a prospective client. And then one day they're like, look, I just came to the office for the first time in 2 years. And there's like all these things you've sent me. And they're like, I appreciate it. We sent books and articles and things like that. And they're like, I don't come to the office at all. And there's no way to really know that unless you have a conversation with them.
Right.
So I imagine in the current era where, ballpark 40% of people are still working from home or do work from home, that can be tough too. You just have to have the conversation with them ahead of time.
You do. And, it's funny how many people will say, ooh, but how do I get the address? It's actually remarkably easy. When you ask, you just, hey, would you mind sharing a mailing address? I'd like to send you, a thank you or something. From time to time, I like to send. People will do that.
Yeah.
So easily.
Yeah. And then I think also just people need to think also, this goes back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier about being strategic and intentional, but, like we talked about earlier, giving a gift that really means something to that person. So, it's like, if you send a hat to someone who doesn't like the way they look in a hat, then, it's not going to go real far. And if your logo is, this huge logo on a hat,
right.
that's not necessarily going to be great either. But then, I'm around people and they see me wearing something that has the Axia logo on. They're like, hey, what do I got to do to get a little Axia swag? And you're like, you want one? Like, okay,
right.
And you're sometimes surprised by it. But, like one thing I've always said is like, when I want to give a gift or a, what do they call them? Branded merchandise, right?
Yeah.
I want it to be something that somebody's going to actually use,
yep.
and ideally not only use it, but also use it in the action or activity related to the services we provide, right?
Okay.
And so, and that's a high bar, when you're doing something that could be considered a little invisible or obscure, like public relations, right? And so we've toyed around with all kinds of things, but like, as one of the gifts we give is a door hanger, and the door hanger says interview in progress, right?
Right.
And so that can be used related to doing interviews and podcast sessions just like this. Could also be used, if they're doing an employment interview kind of thing, or they just want to be in their office and not be disturbed. Right.
Right.
And so, we give those out. In fact, I've got one on the office door right now because I'm doing a recording. So, I find that to be a helpful gift. It's not expensive. No one's going to, go to compliance and say, I got this door hanger.
Right.
Is it ethical for me to use it? Right. And, I don't even know if I know our names on it, but I don't know. Yeah, our logo's somewhere on it. But the point is it we designed it intentionally so it was useful and offered some value or assistance as opposed to being, self-promoting.
Sure. And that's a fantastic way to look at those things. Yeah. And by the way, I think that's a marketing expense, right? That's not a gift.
Yeah.
Because it's got your logo on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you have any other examples of really good tie-ins or alliances between what a company's giving and how they position themselves?
Here's a fun one, and you did this with your clients. So one of the storylines we use is called relationship related. Mm-hmm. And that is... if you can give a gift that reflects, something about the community itself, or you tell the story about something that is maybe a tradition in your world. Mm-hmm. So if you are maybe the CEO and you are the one giving gifts to the employees, if you gave a gift at, let's say you're usually a traditional holiday season, November, December giver. Perhaps the gift is something related to a tradition in your family. Mm-hmm. Hey, in my family, every year, I don't know, maybe it's, we all buy matching socks. And we spend the morning, whatever it is, right? But you're sharing a tradition. Or every year, this is a recipe that my mother used to make. Mm-hmm. And the gift includes the recipe, but it includes the story of your world. Now, the recipients start to feel like they kind of know you personally. And that bit of a glimpse into, wow, it makes you feel closer to the person. You did this with your a summer gift one year, and it was related to your annual cabin vacation growing up.
Right.
So the gift was a yard game, and you talked about, hey, this time of year, we grew up and we went to the lake. So it shares a little bit about you, your community, your relationship with, the family, but it also makes the recipient feel like, we have an experience like that. We used to go to cabins too. And now it's encouraging some additional dialogue and engagement, which is, something that we all want coming out of this. So that's some thoughts on how to be creative.
Yeah, you make a good point, and you're reminding me of things that candidly I've just forgotten over the years. But yeah, the nice thing about that is I got a lot of engagement from people where they said, oh yeah, I'm going to take this to our lake cabin and install it or whatever, because it was a little like the ring thing where you slide the ring and it tries to hook onto the wall, which is a very challenging game, but it's something anybody of all ages can participate in. And I remember, now that you mentioned it, I even had people be like, hey, my coworker is going, on a vacation and they took it with them or something like that. So that's right. It makes a lot of sense. And I love that idea. In fact, you reminded me one year, Jamie, you don't know this, but we hired one of our employees was, a larger guy. And so we dressed him up like Santa Claus, and he delivered figgy pudding to, we did like 75 recipients, I think.
Wow.
And it was crazy when I look back, but and my poor wife, she made all the figgy pudding, but you hear about figgy pudding, but nobody really knows what it is.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So she baked it and made it, and we packaged it and we delivered it. And I mean, the reason I bring this up is because we were doing some spring cleaning, and I stumbled upon, like, we had collected all the note cards that people sent, all the emails people had sent, and people were just like, I never knew what figgy pudding was. It was actually delicious, and thank you. And by the way, Santa was the cherry on top. Having it delivered by Santa, and being in PR, we had it dropped off at some newsrooms, and the newsrooms took pictures and posted on social and/or on their website. And so what I found was actually, we had won an award for, the creativity of that campaign. And so, again, you talk about the idea of, taking something unusual or unexpected or traditional and trying to make that emotional, like we talked about earlier, connection with the recipient. But I guarantee you there's probably, 40 people to this day that probably, when they hear figgy pudding, probably still think of us, or at least I like to hope
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Every year when holiday passes, we look back at all the client gifting and we do some analysis of like what was the top theme, all that kind of stuff. And the very first year we did it, the top gift was this package called Baker's Gonna Bake. And it was a sugar cookie recipe with a bunch of like cutouts and sprinkles and things like that. And by far, I mean, we are talking, it was the most ordered gift. And when we looked at what is that about, it goes back to shared experiences. As the giver, the reason it was so quickly chosen is because we all grew up baking cookies, right? Or we had them growing up at some point.
I definitely ate cookies growing up.
Right? So the giver was like, oh my God, yes, probably it reminded them of something. And the recipient felt the same way. It's the same reason, the thing about selling homes, right? You bake some cookies, that fondness we all have. And that was such a big gift. The last 2 years, if anybody's interested, the last 2 years, wellness gifts have been the top ones sent. So the top theme.
Okay, that's good.
It makes sense, right? I mean, I would imagine this year's going to be another one just like that.
Right. Well, Jamie, as we're wrapping up, you're offering to send a free copy of your book to our audience. Tell us more about that.
Yes. So thank you. Just launched the book this year, and completely free. We'll ship you a hard copy, and in there you will find these storylines that I keep referencing, along with some of the strategy and how to nurture relationships. So it's on our website at theexpressory.com. So theexpressory.com/agency book. And we'll also have a link in the show notes as well. So hope you'll take me up on that. And then, as usual, feel free to reach out with any stories, love stories. And if you have any questions.
Perfect. So real quick, I want you to tell our audience what's the best way to reach you, whether that's LinkedIn or email, if they have questions for you or want to talk to you about what we talked about today. And then secondly, just in a couple of sentences, how did you get into this business? What was your passion behind it?
Well, my passion, I've always been a maker, and I have always heard, wow, you're really good at this when, giving. And I'm e-commerce, IT background, it was time for change, and it all just kind of came together. So I never imagined, a business like this. So it's great how it all worked out. You can reach me if you put my name together. It's J Shibley at theexpressory.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Can easily grab a message there. So.
Okay. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your smarts with our audience today. Thank you for the offer for the book. And with that, I will wrap us up here and say thank you to our audience for tuning in to On Top of PR. As always, it's my pleasure to help you stay on top of PR. I hope whether you do it internally or externally, that the advice Jamie shared today was helpful to you and your organization so that you can become more of a thoughtful gift giver and more of an intentional gift giver within your organization, and do so within the ethical and preferential guidelines of both you, your brand, and ultimately the recipient that's receiving it. If you found this episode helpful, please take a minute to share it with a friend or colleague who you think would benefit from it. And if you really enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to leave us an online review on your preferred platform. We would really appreciate that too. That would be a great way to give us a gift in return for the hard work we put into this podcast. So with that, this is Jason Mudd from Axia Public Relations signing off and wishing something great happening to you today.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by ReviewMaxer. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check out past shows at ontopofpr.com.